The exile. Amina had learned long ago that grief rarely arrived alone. It traveled with suspicion, judgment, and the sharp whispers of those who preferred rumors to truth. Yet she never imagined that the death of her husband, Khalid, would become the doorway to her own downfall. She stood in the courtyard of her in-laws' home, one hand supporting the curve of her pregnant belly, the other clenched tightly to stop her trembling. The air felt heavier than usual, carrying the sour tension of accusation. Shagufta, her mother-in-law, sat rigid on the charpai, her lips pulled into a thin, merciless line. "You think you can fool us?" Shagufta demanded, her voice brittle. "The child you carry is not our son's. You brought shame into this house." Amina swallowed hard. She had repeated the truth so many times in the past weeks that the words had begun to feel useless. Khalid loved me. He trusted me. This is his child. Ralph, her father-in-law, stepped closer, his posture stiff with self-appointed authority. "Trust," he scoffed. "People talk, Amina. And when a woman invites suspicion, she must face the consequences." Amina's heart pounded. She remembered Khalid's warm smile, the way he pressed his forehead against hers when he returned from long shifts as a driver. He had held her the night she shared the news of her pregnancy, tears of joy brightening his usually calm eyes. That memory alone should have been proof enough. But the dead cannot defend the living, and rumors grow stronger in silence. Ralph pointed toward the courtyard gate. "Gather your things. You will leave this house today." The word struck Amina like a blow. Exile, disguised as punishment, justified as honor. She searched their faces, hoping for a trace of mercy, but found only cold resolve. "Where will I go?" she whispered. "That is no longer our concern," Shagufta replied. "You brought this upon yourself." Amina's breath shuddered out of her. Her child twisted inside her, as if responding to the cruelty around them. She felt instinctively protective, even as her own future crumbled beneath her feet. She looked down, blinking away tears. "I have done nothing wrong." Ralph's voice hardened. "It doesn't matter. The village believes you strayed while Khalid worked. A woman must guard her reputation as fiercely as her home, and you failed. Leave before the neighbors gather." Amina wanted to protest, to scream the truth, but exhaustion tugged at her voice. She had fought for weeks, insisting on her innocence until her throat burned. The accusations only grew louder. The more she defended herself, the more suspicious they became. She walked to her small room, gathering what little she owned, a shawl, a pair of sandals, 2 modest outfits, and the silver bracelet Khalid had given her on their first anniversary. She pressed it to her chest, the cool metal grounding her amid the storm. When she stepped outside, Shagufta and Ralph didn't spare her a final glance. Their rejection was absolute, carved into their silence. No neighbor dared intervene. Doors cracked open, eyes watched, then shutters closed again, safer to observe than defend. Amina pushed the courtyard gate open and stepped into the dusty lane. The sun glared harshly overhead, forcing her to squint as she walked away from the only home she had known since her marriage. The familiar sights blurred behind a curtain of tears. Each step felt heavier, as though the weight of judgment clung to her clothing. Her legs strained under her growing body. Hunger gnawed at her, but despair was stronger. The dusty path stretched endlessly before her, winding past fields and thorny bushes that rustled in the breeze. She pressed a hand to her stomach, murmuring to the life inside her, "Hold on. I won't let them break us." The village shrank behind her, its noise replaced by the distant lowing of cattle and the rhythmic creak of windmills further out on the plains. With every mile, the ache in her feet deepened, but she refused to stop. She didn't know where she was headed, only that anywhere was better than the place that betrayed her. A sudden wave of dizziness washed over her. The world wavered, colors blending into a muted haze. She tried to steady herself, gripping a broken fence post, but her knees buckled. She sank to the ground, the dry grass crackling beneath her. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She knew she couldn't stay conscious for long. As her vision blurred, she saw a distant silhouette through the heat shimmer. Broad shoulders, deliberate strides, a towering frame moving toward her. Her mind drifted, uncertain whether the figure was real or imagined. She tried to lift a hand, but her strength slipped away. The last thing she felt was a shadow falling gently over her, cool, protective, and unexpectedly safe. Then everything went dark. The gentle giant, Amina, awoke to the faint scent of wood smoke and the soft creak of a ceiling fan turning above her. For a moment, she didn't move. She lay perfectly still, unsure whether she was safe or trapped in some new, unfamiliar danger. The last thing she remembered was collapsing beside a broken fence, her vision fading while a blurred figure approached. Now she lay on a narrow bed covered with a clean quilt, the fabric surprisingly soft beneath her palms. Sunlight filtered into the room through a small window, painting gentle bars of gold across the floorboards. The air felt calm, strangely calm compared to the chaos she had fled. Her heartbeat slowed. She whispered to herself, "Where am I?" A light knock tapped against the wooden door. Before she could answer, it swung open to reveal a tall woman with a round, kind face and a bowl of warm broth in her hands. The woman's eyes widened with relief. "You're awake." "Thank God." Amina sat up cautiously, gripping the edge of the blanket. "Who are you?" The woman set the bowl on a small table beside the bed and smiled reassuringly. "My name is Maria. My brother found you near the fence last night. You fainted, so he brought you here. This is our home, Haroon's ranch." The name meant nothing to Amina, yet the calmness in Maria's voice eased her nerves. She reached for the bowl, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," Maria replied. "Anyone could see you needed help." Amina took a small sip. The broth soothed her throat, warming her from within. As she drank, Maria's gaze lingered gently on her face, not with judgment, but with genuine concern. I should get going soon," Amina murmured, though her voice lacked conviction. The thought of returning anywhere near her village filled her with dread. Maria hesitated, then shook her head. "You're not strong enough to leave, and my brother won't allow it. Not while you can barely stand." Before Amina could ask more, heavy footsteps approached the doorway. A figure filled the frame, a towering man with a steady posture and broad shoulders, his presence both commanding and calm. He wore a simple shirt rolled at the sleeves, revealing arms hardened by years of labor. This had to be Haroon. "Amina," Maria said, stepping aside, "this is my brother." Haroon offered a small nod. His voice was deep, steady. "You're safe here. Don't be afraid." Amina lowered her gaze. His size could have intimidated anyone, yet something about him felt unexpectedly gentle, like a mountain carved to shelter rather than threaten. "Thank you for helping me," she said softly. "You were unconscious," Haroon replied. "Leaving you, there wasn't an option." He stepped further into the room, but his movements were controlled, as if he understood she might startle easily. He studied her, not with suspicion, but with restrained curiosity. "Is there someone who should know where you are?" Amina's fingers tightened around the bowl. "No," she whispered. "There's no one." Haroon exchanged a brief glance with Maria, who gave him a barely perceptible nod, as if confirming a suspicion. Whatever they guessed, Amina sensed they weren't inclined to pry. "Then you stay until you're well enough to choose what comes next," Haroon said simply. Her breath hitched in her chest. The idea of having a choice felt foreign. For weeks, every decision had been made for her. Accusations hurled at her, punishments forced upon her, exile thrust upon her without compassion. Now, in this unfamiliar home, someone offered her the smallest but most precious thing: autonomy. "Thank you," she said again. Her voice nearly broke. Maria rested a hand lightly on Amina's shoulder. "Rest. When you're ready, you can come outside. Haroon's cooking breakfast, though he'll deny he enjoys it." Haroon cleared his throat, pretending not to hear. "Take your time," he said before stepping out of the room. When they left, Amina exhaled slowly. The air felt lighter now, though sorrow still clung to her like an old wound. She touched her stomach. The child stirred beneath her hand, and she whispered, "Maybe this is where we can breathe." After a short rest, she managed to stand. The house was small but warm, built of sturdy timber with wide windows overlooking rolling fields. Through the open doorway, she spotted Haroon outside, feeding the horses. The animals seemed to respond to him with complete trust, nuzzling his arms as he moved between them. She stepped onto the porch, her feet uncertain on the wooden steps. Haroon noticed her immediately. "You shouldn't push yourself," he cautioned. "I'm all right," she replied, though her voice wavered slightly. He handed her a seat, a sturdy wooden chair placed near the railing. "Sit. Fresh air will help." She obeyed, watching him work. "You live alone out here?" "With Maria," Haroon replied. "Our parents passed many years ago. The ranch keeps us busy." His tone was calm, factual, free from self-pity. Amina admired that. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders, soaking in the peacefulness of the land. The tall grass swaying in the breeze, the rustle of leaves, the soft snorts of horses nearby. Haroon studied her for a moment. "You came from the village?" Amina stiffened. "Yes." He didn't ask more. He didn't push. He simply nodded and returned to his work, giving her space to breathe. For the first time since Khalid's death, silence felt comforting rather than suffocating. As the morning light spread across the ranch, Amina realized something unexpected. She wasn't afraid here. Not of judgment, not of cruelty, not of the future she would soon have to face. And for a woman cast out as punishment, that safety felt like the first step toward reclaiming her life. But she had no idea that her past was already reaching for her again. Shadows of the past. Amina had been on the ranch for 3 days, long enough to regain strength, but not long enough to banish the dread that lingered beneath her skin. Each sunrise brought a sense of tentative safety, yet each night she lay awake listening to the wind rattle the shutters, half convinced it carried whispers from the village she had fled. Haroon noticed the tension even when she tried to hide it. He didn't ask questions. He simply offered steadiness in the form of routine. On this particular morning, he approached her with a small basket of feed and an expectant nod. "Come," he said. "The goats will like you." Amina hesitated, then followed him across the yard. The animals bleated softly as they approached, crowding the fence with eager noses. Haroon showed her how to hold the basket so the smallest goats could reach without being pushed aside. She laughed quietly when one particularly stubborn goat nudged her hand. Haroon watched her, the faintest smile touching his lips. "They trust easily," he said. "Sometimes that's a strength." Amina lowered her gaze. "Or a weakness." He didn't counter her. He understood she wasn't talking about goats. As they worked, Maria joined them with a folded cloth in her hands. "Amina," she called, "I found this in the storage chest. It might fit you." It was a simple dress, clean and patched, but sturdy. Amina accepted it with gratitude. "You've been kinder to me than anyone has in months." "We do what we can," Maria replied softly. "And sometimes people deserve a place to start again." Amina's chest tightened. She wanted to believe that. She wanted to think the world still held corners untouched by cruelty. But the past has a way of bleeding into the present. Later that afternoon, while Haroon repaired a section of the fence, Amina helped Maria wash vegetables under the pump. Their peaceful rhythm was broken by the distant rumble of a wagon on the road. Amina froze, her hands submerged in the cold water. Maria glanced at her. "Are you expecting someone?" Maria asked. "No," Amina whispered, her stomach tightening. The wagon slowed, then stopped near the ranch gate. Dust settled around it like a veil. 2 men climbed down, one tall, one broad. Amina recognized their postures even from afar, rigid, judgmental, unyielding. Shaguf Thaw's cousins. Her breath faltered. "They found me," she murmured. Haroon had already noticed the wagon. He wiped his hands on a cloth and walked toward the gate with a measured stride, the kind of stride that warned others to watch their next words. Amina could see the tension in his shoulders. Maria touched her arm. "Stay here." But Amina stepped forward. "They won't leave unless they speak to me." Maria didn't argue. She simply stayed close, offering silent support. The cousins met Haroon at the gate, their expressions souring as they took in his towering presence. "We're looking for a woman," the taller man announced. "A widow who ran away from her responsibilities." Haroon stood unmoved. You mean the woman you abandoned on the roadside? The man bristled. That's family business. Not anymore, Harun replied. Amina approached slowly. The men's eyes snapped toward her, their faces twisting with contempt. There she is, the broad one muttered. Bringing shame to another household now. Amina swallowed her fear. Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. I left because I was accused of something I did not do. The taller cousin sneered. Everyone knows you betrayed Khalid. His child isn't. That's enough, Harun interrupted, his voice low but edged with steel. You don't come to my land and spread lies. The cousins exchanged irritated glances. We're taking her back, the broad one said. You're not, Harun replied. His certainty startled Amina. She looked at him, really looked. The quiet giant who spoke sparingly now stood like an immovable wall between her and the past. She felt a flutter of something unfamiliar. Not fear, not dependence, but a small, fragile sense of hope. The tall cousin tried again. Her in-laws want her returned. They'll decide her consequences. Amina's hand lifted instinctively to her belly. They forced me out, she said. They wanted me gone. That doesn't matter anymore, the cousin snapped. They changed their minds. Harun took a single step forward. The men stepped back. She stays, he said. If she wants to leave, she'll leave by her choice, not yours. The cousins glared but knew they were outmatched. Harun's presence alone made retreat the only sensible option. Muttering under their breath, they climbed back onto the wagon. Before leaving, the tall cousin called out, This isn't finished. Her in-laws will come themselves. As the wagon disappeared down the road, Amina felt her knees weaken. Maria caught her arm. Amina, sit, she urged. Harun turned toward her, his jaw still tight with anger. You don't owe them anything, he said. Not your presence, not your dignity, not your fear. Amina looked at him, at the depth of his conviction, the sincerity in his eyes. They won't stop, she whispered. They will keep coming. I know, Harun replied. He didn't promise that the danger was over. He didn't pretend the conflict had vanished. He simply offered the truth, and with it, his protection. We'll face them when they come, he said. For the first time since she entered this nightmare, Amina felt she didn't have to face it alone. The reckoning. The air felt unnervingly still the next morning, as though the land itself sensed what was coming. Amina stood at the porch railing, watching pale sunlight wash over the ranch. The serenity should have comforted her, but something churned beneath its surface, a gathering storm she could feel but not yet see. Harun joined her quietly. He rested his hands on the wooden rail, his posture calm but alert. They'll come today, he said, not as a warning, but as a certainty. Amina nodded, her fingers tightening around the railing. I don't want trouble for you. You didn't bring trouble, Harun replied. Your in-laws did that themselves. His words, simple yet resolute, steadied her. For days she had carried fear like a weight pressed against her ribs. But standing beside Harun made that load lighter, as though she no longer bore it alone. Before she could respond, Maria hurried toward them from the yard. Wagon on the road, she announced. 2 people this time. Amina's breath caught. She didn't need to ask who it was. Shagufta and Ralph. The wagon approached slowly, the wheels grinding against the dirt path. As it stopped at the gate, Amina's heartbeat hammered in her ears. Her in-laws climbed down, stiff, severe, judgment forged into every line of their aging faces. Shagufta's eyes swept over the ranch like it was contamination. So this is where you've been hiding, she said, her voice sharp enough to cut. I wasn't hiding, Amina replied. She stepped forward, though her legs trembled. You told me to leave. I obeyed. Ralph folded his arms across his chest. You disgraced our home. You ran without permission. Now the village demands answers. The village demands gossip, Amina said quietly. Not truth. Shagufta's lips thinned. You speak boldly for someone who owes us obedience. Amina inhaled slowly. All her life, she had been taught to bow her head, to accept blame even when undeserved, to swallow grief in silence. But the ranch had changed something within her. Safety had begun turning into strength. Before she could speak, Harun stepped beside her, his presence firm and immovable. "You don't own her," he told Shagufta and Ralph. "You don't command her." Ralph glared up at him. "This is our family matter. Stay out of it." "No," Haroon replied, his tone quiet steel. "This is now her life, and she chooses who stands with her." Amina felt a warmth stir in her chest, small but powerful. She drew a steady breath and faced her in-laws directly. "I won't go back with you," she said. "Not now, not ever. You carry Khalid's name." Shagufta snapped. "Or did you forget that while you consorted with strangers?" Haroon's jaw tightened, but Amina lifted a hand, signaling that she could fight her own battle. "I never betrayed him," she said. "I loved him. I still do. But you took my mourning and twisted it into shame. You threw me out when I was most vulnerable." Ralph scoffed. "We acted to protect our reputation. Then why are you here now?" Amina asked. Shagufta hesitated, just for a heartbeat, but it was enough. In that pause, Amina understood. The cousins had returned to the village with stories. People were talking, and not kindly. "You're afraid," Amina realized. "Not for me, never for me. You're afraid of being blamed." Shagufta's eyes flashed with alarm and fury. "You ungrateful." "Enough," Haroon said, stepping forward. His shadow stretched long across the earth. "You threw her out. She survived without you, and she'll build her future without you." Ralph's stare flickered between Haroon and Amina, frustration thickening his features. But for the first time, Amina saw uncertainty beneath his anger. "You can leave now," Haroon finished. Shagufta opened her mouth as though to argue, but the words never came. She saw what Amina had already felt. The ranch was a sanctuary, and no amount of venom would breach its walls. Without another word, Ralph turned back to the wagon. Shagufta followed reluctantly, her glare lingering on Amina before she climbed aboard. The wagon rattled down the road, shrinking into the horizon until it vanished. Amina's knees finally gave way. Maria rushed to her side, but Haroon reached her first, steadying her with one large hand. "You did well," he said softly. "You stood your ground." Tears gathered in Amina's eyes, not of sorrow, but release. "I never thought I could." "You just needed a place to breathe," Haroon replied. "A place where your voice mattered." Amina looked up at him. For days she had noticed the steadiness in his gaze, the quiet way he moved through the world, the gentleness that rarely existed in men who bore such strength. Now, for the first time, she saw something else tucked beneath the layers of restraint, care. Deep, unspoken, patient care. "I don't know what comes next," she whispered. "You don't need to," Haroon said. "One step at a time. And if you allow it, you won't have to take them alone." The wind carried the scent of fresh hay across the yard. The sun rose higher, warming the earth and the space between them. Amina rested a hand on her belly, feeling her child move, a small reminder of the life she had to protect. She met Haroon's eyes. "Then let's see what tomorrow brings." And for the first time in months, the future didn't terrify her. It felt like hope.